All right, what's up, everybody? My name is Indy, and that gentleman way over there drinking that coffee, that is Jay, and right in the middle, we have Fedor. Yeah, today we are talking about using technology to network at events. Or at...
Something.
Yeah, something.
Something Fedor knows a whole lot about.
A whole lot
ironically enough. So, welcome to the show, Fedor. We always like to start in the same place because these stories are always the best. Tell us how you got into the industry and then walk us through your career up to what you're doing now with Meet to Match.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on the show as a starter. So we have been doing this for about 10 years now. But how I started when I came freshly out of college, I was an intern at an event in the Netherlands where we were based. It was called the Festival of Games. It was a B2B event for the games industry. And actually during the first event there, we wanted to do a matchmaking event between publishers and developers. And I needed to do that as an intern by hand in an Excel sheet. And can you imagine how my weekend before the show started looked like? Yeah, that was horrendous. But not even that part was horrendous. The bad part was about to get started, because then you got people who got signed up really late or canceled their participation. So you needed to take 20 meetings out, 20 meetings in. It was horrendous. So at that point we said, like, okay, I said no more. I'm not going to do this anymore. And they hired me afterwards. So I actually had a saying in that. And we decided to build some technology to let other people and the technology schedule some meetings to meet each other at events. I was responsible for sales and marketing at that event from 2008 to 2012, I'd say. After that one, I went to a ad for a game developer, doing some creative, but most of the time project management on actually or producer, as we would have called it right now, work. And after that one, it's the most exciting time of my life to work for an energy company. And
like a power company, not like Monster Energy, right?
Okay. Yeah, no, like really electricity. Yeah, gas and electricity. So I focused on doing a lot of online stuff there. So websites, social media, all kinds of online communication. But simultaneously, the Festival of Games was no longer organized, but we still had the technology. And my former boss there and I decided to partner up with other game events around us, because obviously over the years we built up some network on competitive versus partner events. So the first event we worked with, I think, was in 2013. It was Nordic Game Conference in Sweden. And we're still working with them, so I think it's our seventh or sixth or seventh year with them. And from that moment onwards, it gradually grew. But we still had our daily jobs. It was me having my daily jobs. It was my partner doing that. So we actually needed to take days off from work to travel to conferences. Leaving no extra days to go on a holiday with the family anymore. So there was a moment in time when they decided to kill us.
Are you saying that, going to these conferences doesn't count as vacation? Because
only the night times, only the after hours.
Very true. So,
and from that moment onwards, so we stopped doing energy stuff and partner some consulting work, and we focused fully on Meet to Match, gradually growing it from one event to over 20 events that we do right now, and about 80% of them are in the games industry. because that's where we started and that's where our heart lies.
So, what are some of the shows that you work with? You mentioned Nordic Game Conference, but there's many more. What are some of the other shows that you help out with?
Yeah, so most of them are based in Europe. We work with Quo Vadis conference in Berlin. As said, Nordic Game Conference, one of the biggest after Gamescom in Europe. We work together with Indigo, which is a new Dutch event. Barcelona Games World. We've the past year we worked at DevCon, so the official developer event before Gamescom. And many more to go. And we have two separate, strange kind of events where we offer our service as a moreover an online service where we do not work together with the event organizers themselves, and that is during Gamescom, and also that big one coming up in San Francisco in about 20 days or even less.
Even less, yes. That's that is very, very fast approaching. So tell us about the system itself. What is Meet to Match? How does it work? Why should everyone be using it? Walk us through that part.
Yeah, so you have why should people use it, and you have what we are offering. This is not going to be any sales pitch, but what we try to do is we try to build a technology where it's very user-friendly. In a very user-friendly way, you enable people to schedule meetings with each other. So, for example, I sign up. I see that you are attending in the attendee list and what you're doing is interesting to me. I'll send you a little pitch why I would like to meet you, and you can either accept or decline. That technology is available everywhere. We have competitors in the games industry, outside of the games industry, just looking at technology. But what we saw is that if you just gave the technology to people, people often tend not to use it. So we build like a whole nudging campaign, nudging strategy around it, taking people by the hand, like, hey, in this phase of in time, you should do this. Let's say, fill in your profile. Tell me what you're looking for. That stuff. Why are you laughing right now, Jay?
Because you refer to it as a gentle nudging system. I refer to it as getting on the phone and telling my clients to fill in your freaking profile. It's.
I think we're referring to the same thing.
Yes. We've talked several times on this show about how that's one of my biggest pet peeves is when people have access to a system like this. And they've paid for it generally. It's one thing if like you go somewhere and they automatically dump you in the system and you don't really care. That's not what you were there for, whatever. But when you go and you pay someone money to get access to a meeting system and then you don't do shit to fill out your profile and what you're looking for and all that kind of good stuff, it drives me absolutely crazy.
Me too. And then you have another group of those things that drives me nuts. Those are people who receive a lot of invitations and do not reply to those invitations. So that is also the moment when I sometimes get on the phone, ask like, hey, how can I help you getting those ones answered?
All right, and that brings up an interesting point because. And I've used the system several times. I don't know that I ever noticed this, but in the meeting system, there's almost like a rating system for people that are attending now with the stars, and that gives you an idea of how responsive they are. What do the little stars actually mean beside people's names, and why do I only have 2?
So you want me to clearly explain our formula of rating?
Yeah, just write. Yeah. Put the algorithm down on a piece of paper or something, and let's go through that.
So I'll tell you the basic. It's about often you log in, how many meeting requests you send out, what the percentage is of your profile that is currently filled. So if it's 100%, you get a better rating, obviously, with the first star than when it's 95 or that kind of stuff. Yeah, and how responsive you are. Are you actually sending out meeting requests, and are you logging back in to do stuff? So it's
a good way, at a glance, when you're looking at your schedule and you only have a couple of slots left and you're like, okay, who should I, send an invite to? It's a good way to kind of make a change or make a decision in there based on something. It's like, oh, okay, this person may actually respond to me.
For sure. Yeah. And it also helps you sometimes when two or more people of a similar company end up, you see who the most active person is. So then again, you know who to pick, or who may be less likely to pick.
A lot of times I end up going with the one who has actually managed to fill out their profile. Because a lot of times you'll see, there's one person who's got it, filled out and done, and they have a nice little picture up there, and then there's another person that's just got a name, and that's all it is. And I'm like, well, yeah, they must not be overly engaged in all this stuff. So, it's a wonderful system, to be able to, and I'll, confess, we use it internally for the Powell Group meetings, but we also use, Meet to Match for all of our clients. And it's so much easier to go through and just absolutely look and say, okay, is this person looking for a publisher, or is this publisher looking for a developer? Or, because it says, here's my company profile and here's what I'm interested in. And, it can't be any clearer. And then you can also go in and sort, so if you only want to meet companies that are doing stuff in console games, then you can sort by that, and several other little, options that are in there. So it makes, aside from organizing your schedule and making it simple that way, it makes it much easier to set yourself up with the meetings that are going to be the best for you in the long run anyway. So
yeah, that's what we strive for. So thanks for saying that.
So over the last, where you're going on, where you said you started in 2013?
Yeah, so there are different answers to that question, because we rebranded technology from scratch again a couple of times. But it's safe to say that with this concept, we're doing it since 2013. Yes.
But in general, you've been attending these conferences and you've been in the industry longer than that. So how have you seen these shows change over the course of your career?
Yeah, a couple of things that stand out when you ask me that. I think many of have become more business focused, as opposed to knowledge sharing, lectures, that kind of stuff. Also less expo driven. So what we notice is you see the expo floor actually trimming down on the side of suppliers, and it's actually growing on the side of indie developers. And I think that brings me to my next point. We see the focus developers on each conference becoming much higher. There are very often special indie packages around, exhibit, free access to the matchmaking technology and service, that kind of stuff for a really reasonable price as compared to established bigger. What we also see is that a lot of events become more regional focused. So as opposed to the traveling circus of many events going from city to city, like for example, Nordic Game Conference, if you want to meet developers from the Nordics, you need to be there. If you look at Barcelona Games World, if you want to meet the Spanish scene, you go there. And we see that a lot of, at least investors or publishers, like it to get a better understanding of the actual scene as a country itself. And I think the last thing that pops up in the last 2 years, or maybe a bit more, are the big brands organizing their own business events. For example, Unities Unite or TwitchCon with the B2B part. Yeah.
And I agree on that, because it's gotten so crazy. And I spoke at a college yesterday to some aspiring game developers, and I was trying to explain how important it is to get out and network and meet people. And I made the comment of, if you wanted to go to a game conference every week of the year, you could most likely do it, assuming you wanted to fly, from one end of the globe to the other. But there is something going on every week. It's amazing how many of these shows, I'll be blunt, it's amazing how many of these shows can stay in business given how many of them there are. But I think, what you just said about that, they're becoming more specialized and, regional. That's a big part of it. And E3 is an example of this, because E3 to me doesn't know what it is anymore. It used to be the big media show that you had to go to and get all the websites and the magazines and everyone up to date on what you're going to be doing for the next year. But then the online world and streamers kind of threw a gigantic wrench in that, and they died for a couple of years and they came back. But all of these shows tend to have a theme or something they're focused on, but E3 doesn't anymore. Is that what you see as well, or? Wait, did Fedor freeze on us?
Yeah, he totally did.
All right, we'll give him a second.
All right, we'll give him a sec. Yeah, our boy got freezied.
Who? What? Oh, yeah. I was like,
yeah, boy, got all freezed up.
So what have you been up to for the last week, Andy?
Just been working on team stuff and getting ready for PAX.
That's right. When is PAX coming up? Is that next week?
It's the last week of the month.
Oh, okay. It's after GDC.
Yeah, it's like right after. Usually that's the way it is. They make it to where, it seems it's been in the past anyways, where it's like before GDC is over, you have to fly out to PAX to. I've done that before. It was like an 8-day conference. It was.
So rough. Are you going to PAX this year?
Yeah, going to PAX. Yeah.
I want to go. I've never been.
You never been to PAX?
No.
It's pretty neat. I'm going, and Bradley, Mr. Roleplay with Friends, we're getting an Airbnb together. There's Fedor.
Hey, I'm back. Oh, man. The last 5 minutes of your speech, you sounded like the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz, and then all of a sudden, it was gone. Sorry about this.
He was singing "If I Only Had a Brain," or no, it's "If I Only Had a Heart," right? That's what it.
Oh, really? I missed that. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
I was like, did I ask just a really awkward question there, or is he not responding because?
And he was just like,
he's not moving. That would make the difference. Okay. Now we're good to go.
Okay.
So
we're back.
We were talking about how all of these there's so many all become specialized except E3, and E3 isn't really sure what it is anymore, and they keep just kind of going up and down and up and down in terms of attendance and everything else. I don't know where we were going with that. That's part of the problem. So we were talking about how they've evolved. So how much of this evolution do you feel is good? Are we getting to a point where we need this many shows? How does a developer figure out which ones they want to go to? Given, it's easier here in the U.S., I think, because we don't have as many. But in Europe, oh my God! You hop on a train and you could be somewhere every week. So how should these teams be looking at prioritizing their conference attendance?
Yeah. So From one hand, is it, as you said, as long as conferences keep on existing, and as long as they're able to sell, and there is a demand apparently, and that is good. And from an indie perspective, whether to choose to go to an event, I think you need to look at your own pipeline. So what are you trying to accomplish in what phase? In what phase is your current game and your next game or your oldest game? And what do I want to achieve with that? Act accordingly. And what I sincerely hope to bring across is, don't start planning your events like a couple of months before your game is done, because you still need to find a publisher, which I unfortunately see happening a lot.
Yep, me too. Anyway.
And obviously our budget constraints. So make sure you pick the ones where you look at the attendee list, you see the publishers that fit to the profile of your game or your potential game or your oldest game. If you don't know them, go there and brush up your network. Because if you met them once, you can very long communicate with them for a very long time digitally. But you needed to have seen them once. Will not stand out in their email inbox. So plan ahead, then pick the ones that potentially look best.
So in preparation, how far in advance, should they be looking, and what do they need to do to, actually prepare for the conference? I mean, and I know that we've got like there are two different kind of conferences out there. You've got the, business oriented ones, and then you've got like PAX, which are the more consumer oriented ones. On the business side, what are the best things that these developers can do if they're going to be, involved in something, like a meet to match event?
Yeah. So I think my main recommendation is sign up soon as you can. Do not wait until 2 weeks before the event or a couple of days before the event. 2 reasons. One of them obviously is early bird thing, so you can save some money. But apparently that's also something that I see evolving over the years. People don't tend to look at those savings anymore, or tend not to be triggered by that. But I think the most important thing is that when you sign up soon and you see that publisher coming in and you send that publisher an invite for a meeting, if the schedule of that publisher is pretty open, but your pitch is maybe a little bit off or not entirely right, they're still much more open to accept your request because they have the feeling that they are not completely booked yet. In a later stage, their agenda fills up pretty quickly, and they will be more picky. So the sooner the better. And also, what I in my backend, I can always see how everything works and how people try to invite other people, and it feels a little bit like being someone's mom to say this, but stop copy pasting a general message and send it out to every publisher, or forget to change the first name and still using the other one that you just copy pasted. But maybe even worse is sending one without a personal message. Just like, I want to meet this person. It's the same as with a LinkedIn request. Like when you don't know a person, like boom. What? Give me some context. The rates of people declining those messages are incredibly high on the publisher and investor side.
So, and that is good advice. And I had never thought about the fact that the earlier you ask for a meeting, the higher chance you'll have of getting one. But it's absolutely true, because I do it myself. when I get down to like having only 4 or 5 slots left, I get super picky about, who I'm meeting with, or, just in case, God forbid, I wanted to get something to eat in the middle of the day, which doesn't typically happen either. So, I mean, aside from developers and publishers, and you mentioned investors, who else goes to these, events and participates in these events that, indie devs can, hope or look to meet up with while they're there?
Oh, that's a very broad question. I think everybody related to the games industry that can either buy or sell something to the industry is there. You have the general companies that are always omnipresent, which are QA companies, localization companies, and another advice from my side is that because people very often tend to be fed up with the amount of meeting requests they get from these kind of companies, like testing, QA, etc. But from another perspective, talk to them already, because the moment you need them is because you need to port your game within a week kind of stuff, and you already want to have those conversations going. So treat them as your friend. Obviously, they're trying to sell you something, but you're trying to sell something to a publisher too, right? So everything is doing it with a hopefully sincere heart and because they like what they're doing. But also all kinds of new technologies that you can implement in your game are there. You can meet other events. As I said, basically everybody from the games industry is around.
And that's good advice to not, you do have to remember that you are accepting and rejecting real people. And so, as many situations in this industry goes, don't be a dick, because you don't know who that person is going to be in 2 years and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, this is a very, and here's the other part, especially when you're at smaller shows, like you all have, this is the second year that you've got your own venue. And full disclosure, as if folks that have been listening know, we're working with Fedor and Meet to Match on our upcoming event in April as well. But, it's when you have these small personal events and areas like this where you're not talking about, I have to find somebody in the South Hall of the Moscone Center. It's like, I have in these meeting rooms over at San Francisco State, you're probably going to run into that person that you were rude to, when it comes down to, accepting or rejecting, or, these aren't gigantic places. The beauty of it is you get to network, outside of just who you have meetings with. So it behooves you to be polite, whether you're asking for a meeting or accepting a meeting or rejecting a meeting, all the way around. Yes.
Yeah. Just like we're human beings.
And see, people always seem to forget that when they're dealing with, the internet. It's like, I'm on the internet, so I don't have to be, I don't have to behave like a normal person anymore. So aside from...
Yeah, it also has a different side because you are touching upon the...
And there he goes again.
And we froze again.
Yeah.
You know what? I think we should blame Heine. Heine is probably sucking up all the bandwidth in the Netherlands this morning.
That's what he's doing. So speaking of that, I was looking on Facebook the other day, and there's this post of like, our game just got released. Does anybody know anything about marketing?
Oh my God.
Can you give us some, we want to market our game now. Hey there. I was like, oh my gosh, so they spent months working on their game, and then it's released. Now they're like, hey, does anyone know anything about marketing?
That was one of the things that one of the questions that came up yesterday when I was meeting with that group was, what do we need to know going in? And that was one of the things I hammered on. I was like, you have to, look at this as a business if you're going to sustain yourself as a business, which means you have to put money away for marketing. That's just the reality of it. That drives me nuts. So, Fedor, you left us on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I was like, you cut off like right exactly in the middle of what you were saying right before you were going to say get to the actual point.
Yeah, well, this is a cliffhanger, so I actually gave you the opportunity of doing something in between. So yeah, it's I think the landlines through the Great Ocean are not so doing so well today. They're not treating us well. So what I was saying is, because we were talking about being a dick on the internet.
And then there it goes again. The world just, and you're froze too, Jay. Oh, no, you're not.
No, I'm not. I'm just being really, really still. Yeah, it's so cold outside. It's froze the pipes at the bottom of the ocean. That's basically what's happened here. But the point I was making to those students is, we do this and we work in this industry because we love it. We don't. I said, raise your hand if you're in here and you want to get into games because you want to get rich. And luckily, none of them raised their hand because, let's face it, that none of us can really get rich in this industry. I said, but you have to, treat it like a business. Otherwise, you're not going to get to do this thing that you really, really love. Hey, welcome back, Fedor. Once again, I swear you cut off like right as you were getting ready to say what you were going to say. Are you back?
Yeah, let me know. Yeah.
Yep,
hopefully.
You're back.
I switched to another Wi-Fi point, so hopefully that works. So maybe this is some kind of a cursed thing that I'm not allowed to say, but I'm gonna try for the third time. So dicks on one side of the internet, but on the other side there is what technology does for people who are not so extrovert. That's what I wanted to say. Yep. This technology is so much easier. Without showing your full self. Again, you can just safely behind your computer, prepare your little pitch kind of stuff, and make sure to use it even as an extrovert person, of course. But
so, you obviously get to see a lot of the behind the scenes profiles and pitches and that sort of stuff as you're managing the whole process. What are the biggest mistakes that you see developers making when they're doing their outreach and building their profiles?
Yeah, so as I said before, sending out generic stuff to publishers, like the copy pasting of stuff, and or not sending a pitch along when sending a meeting request. What we also see is that whether it's developers or other parties, but all developers do it as well, they just tick every box. Like, I'm a developer, I'm a publisher, I'm a distributor, I'm an investor, in the hope that when they pop up with in the search, in each search, and that they get a meeting request out of that. Please stop do that. Because
there are certain segments of the industry that are bad about doing that.
Yeah, there are worser categories of companies in the industry doing that. It's not going to get you any extra additional request. And what they're please really specify with what you're doing. State what kind of platforms you are developing for, or plan to do, or have done. Put in a link to your portfolio so that investors and publishers can easily click on it to see what you've done. Don't forget to show on your website or wherever you're linking to what your team is about. Because it's not just about the game. They want to see who's behind the game and the company. because eventually they're investing in the people and not really or fully in the game itself. Obviously, it should be good, but it should also be done in time, within budget, with the right people. So make sure you have that too.
So let's talk a little bit more specifics here. And so I'm posting right now in chat the discount code that we have for the GDC venue you have. So last year you set aside an entire area, for people that are using the system to come meet. So how has that gone? And tell us a little bit about that aspect of it.
Yeah, so, and it was not entirely like you described it, because last year was the first time we did something during GDC, during those days. And the reason was because a lot of people do not actually have a valid pass to go into the Moscone Center and meet up with you. You have a lot of people, very often high-profile people, who are residing in hotel lobbies or in an Airbnb suite. And you will not meet them there. So what we decided to do because our end users requested that from us, can't you offer your service as an online service, as a technology for help us set up meetings there? So last year we did it for the first time there. We did it previously during Gamescom, so we had some experience with it. Last year we didn't have a venue. So so what we did, we were really with a guerrilla campaigning everything. We had a couple of meeting points inside the Moscone Center because of we had some country pavilions that worked with us and that wanted to be a meeting point to get some additional traffic. But we had also an external meeting point right across Moscone Center on a corner of a street, where my colleagues stood the entire day with a me-to-match branded umbrella. Yeah, it was really doing it guerrilla style. And why was it? Because we were not able to rent a venue close enough to Moscone Center. And you know what happens when you do that? You get the first GDC edition where it actually rains in 8 years. So imagine people needing to meet up with a meetup.
Yeah.
We saw the weather forecast, so hence what I said. My colleague was standing there with a branded umbrella. We had some umbrellas and we handed them out to people actually meeting there, and we walked them to a cafe or whatever. What we do after an event, we always ask people how to improve the event. Well, imagine it raining, having an outside meeting point. There was some room for improvement and feedback there, which we took upon us. So we have a venue now close to Moscone Center, only 2 blocks away, in the San Francisco State University. And if you're now meeting somebody that has no access to Moscone Center, you can meet up there at a table. Your personal agenda will show you at what table number you will actually meet at what time. So it's very easy. You come to a location, you know that you're meeting this person at table number 1 at 9 o'clock. You'll be there at 9 o'clock if you're not too hangover, but please show up. You'll meet the other partner there. Very convenient. And no umbrellas.
But that is such a true statement when you're talking about the fact that not everybody gets a show pass. I mean, I've been going to GDC since it was in San Jose. I did skip last year, so I didn't realize it rained last year. All the complaints I saw coming out of GDC last year were the fact that that road is still 5 years later under construction and they haven't done anything, I heard about that part. I didn't hear about the rain aspect of it, but because I was sitting there thinking, I was like, you're right. I don't ever remember it raining at GDC. I mean, it would rain at Casual Connect up in Seattle, but I mean, you're in Seattle. It's going to rain or drizzle or something while you're up there. But so much of the business side of this industry takes place outside of the Moscone Center. There's been several years when I didn't get a pass because I didn't need a pass. All of my meetings were at the W or the Intercontinental or, a bed and breakfast, like you said, not a bed and breakfast, an Airbnb suite or something like that. So it's good. And even if I wanted to use the system, but I did, say I did have an Airbnb suite or I had a room at the Intercontinental or whatever, you can still use that as your meeting point, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So when you sign up, you can tell us if you have like a dedicated own meeting location, and we can set in our technology as your default meeting location. So if you would be at the Intercontinental suite number 500, then all of your meetings are redirected there. Yep.
If you were paying over $1,000 a night for a room at the Intercontinental during GDC week, then yes, absolutely. It's absolutely nuts how expensive that stuff gets.
Yep.
So let's, shift gears a little bit here. Last year you didn't, I thought y'all had the venue last year, but so this year's the first year with the venue.
Yep.
Let's talk about what you and I are doing together and what your thoughts are and why we're doing this and what we hope to achieve out of it. We're April 15th and 16th, we're going to have a online business matchmaking event, specifically for indie developers. We're reaching out to developers, publishers, service providers, streamers, streamer sponsors are going to be, attending. So we're trying to make sure that between Fedor and I's what seems like centuries sometimes of experience going to conferences and seeing how they work, we're really trying to bring in a good mix for everyone. People have heard me talk about the online thing. What do you see this in as, the future? Do you think, we're going to see more and more of these online events? What inspired you to, help us with this, basically?
So if you're really talking about what inspired me to work with you on this event, is the fact, it's the same fact why we have done matchmaking event at GDC in San Francisco, is we want to make sure that everybody has access to publishers and investors. So if you have no budget at all to travel, or if you then found a sponsor to travel when it comes to GDC, our early bird tickets there were only $50, right? So for me, it's about enabling everybody in the games industry access to the right people. And you had that same vision. And yeah, for me, work is not work. Work should be fun. And I only like to work with people I like. I never met you in person. I'm going to at GDC, so we're going to have some beers.
Yes.
But we shared the same values, and bringing this network that we both have. I think maybe you more focused on the US side, me maybe a bit more focused on the US side, is or in the Europe side for me, is bringing together a very good mix, a very good composition potentially of the right people. Do I already know that this is going to replace real events, or I don't know. I haven't read my mind around it yet. Personally, I'm a person, so I believe in a healthy mixture of seeing people offline and online. But the best relationships always come from offline encounters.
Yeah, I don't see it replacing the in-person events either, because we do need to get out and actually physically interact with people at least once or twice a year. But you're right. I mean, the reason we're doing this is it's the second phase of this show that we're on right now. This show came about because we wanted to give people who typically didn't have access, to conferences and to lectures and to the knowledge that, a lot of us have, gathered over the years. We wanted to have a very low barrier of entry way of doing it. And so, doing the online event is very, it's the next logical step. You can't, a lot of these studios, they don't have the budget to go. I mean, up to GDC. A ticket to get in for full access to GDC is it $1,500 this year? Plus a hotel room, which is going to run you anywhere from $350 to $1,000 a night, plus a flight, plus food, and you can't eat at a diner in San Francisco for less than $20. So it all adds up, and it's expensive. I mean, it's expensive for companies like us, who have been around for a while, and so we know it's expensive for developers, and so we wanted to, sit down and find a way to give them the same opportunities for meeting with publishers or meeting with streamers and growing their companies from a business point of view. We wanted to give them that same chance. So, with what we're doing, obviously there's not a venue to go to, but we're going to be doing video conferencing, that sort of stuff.
So is there like a schedule for this or for the event?
So it's going to be the 15th and 16th of April. The schedule is an interesting question because that's one of the things that, we've been bouncing back and forth. It's like you don't, if everybody's in San Francisco, it's easy to say, okay, the doors open at 9 and they close at 6. But when you're dealing with a international, show that could easily be covering people from half the globe, we're going to open it up at midnight Eastern time on the 15th, and it will close at midnight Eastern time on the 16th. So we got like 48 straight hours in there that you can set your meetings up depending on where you are in the world.
Yeah, you will be able to set up your own time zone when you sign up for the first time. So you will actually see in your agenda which time zones to block because you actually need that sleep at a certain point in time if you're on the other side of the world. So you can easily manage everything there, block slots, but also how I perceive this as a bit different is that this online event can blend in really well with your regular working day. Normally you take a day off when you go to an event or multiple days off, your inbox piles up, etc. And you need to recover from the event beverage wise, but also inbox wise. And this time you don't need to do it. You go to the internal meeting that you have at 9. You go to then you have another scheduled call. Then you go for lunch. Then you have another video call through our event. So it blends in really well with your personal thing. So I think that is also something that you should keep in mind.
Yeah, and especially those of us that run small businesses and have kids and all of that sort of good stuff. You don't have to plan on somebody else picking them up at school. If you need to go pick them up at school, I mean, I will. I'll have a certain block in my day that's going to be empty because I got to go pick up my little mini me. And so it is easier to blend it around not only your work schedule but your personal schedule. And if you want to do meetings later in the evening, then you can absolutely do that because you're not going to be meeting with people that are always in the same time zone. You'll be meeting with people all over the world.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, or at least that is how I would go about it when needing to meet certain people. I would extend my calendar when there is that one publisher that I really want. So you have the full flexibility of blocking it at one point and opening it up at another point in time because you really see someone coming in that you need to speak to. So no sleep after all.
I got derailed there for a minute. So, I mean,
hopefully it was a good email.
It's, it's my usual, I see something shiny, it's like squirrel. So, I mean, what would your recommendation be, in terms of, is there a different type of preparation that you need to do for an online event versus a physical event? I mean, what's your take on that?
So I think the most important difference, or the thing you need to emphasize on when you're doing an online meeting, normally when you're having an offline meeting face-to-face, you can see somebody's body language. And right now, I don't know if Jay is sitting up straight or having a lounging chair right now, but it says all about how he's listening or being engaged with this conversation. And now I cannot do it. So people tend to rattle or have a very pitch conversation, not even looking at the screen, how that other person, or if he or she is actually taking it in what you're saying. And then, so I'm done. So tell me, is this a good for you or not? Please make sure to still look at the other person. Make sure it's a conversation, a two-way thing.
Yeah, I mean, because it is, while we don't necessarily meet face to face, and this goes for any online, because a lot of our meetings are video calls now, and it has taken a little bit of the pressure off of that. I have to go somewhere every 3 or 4 months and meet people face to face, when I can fire up Discord or Skype or whatever you use, and it's like, oh look, I'm looking at you, you're right there, But that's a very good point, because you still need to look engaged while you're talking, and it comes through in how you're responding, and you can still see that person's reaction if you're showing a gameplay clip or whatever. It's a great way to actually keep focused on what you're doing, because let's be honest, it's a lot easier to get distracted when you're sitting in your own office with multiple screens up than it is when you're at a show and you're being you are engaged face to face. So I mean, yeah, that's a very, very important aspect of it that it's like I knew, but I didn't really think about it that much. So in terms of both of these shows, I mean, both the online and the physical, and we touched a little bit on how you go and find the right people, but let's do a little bit. I've pulled up my meet to match schedule for GDC. Now, I'm not going to say the number. I'm going to let you say the number in case you want to keep it a big secret. But roughly how many people are signed up for this show in San Francisco in the system right now?
So currently, little over 750. And really, those are, I would say, a lot of publishers, a lot of investors, and developers, service providers or suppliers. So it's actually a very, very good, interesting mix of companies being there. And obviously, I might be a bit biased when saying that, but you should take a look for yourself if you're watching this. So a lot of good people to meet up with. A little tiny secret, which I'm not telling everybody, and I told anybody up till now. But there are a couple of really high profile people in the technology in our meeting manager who have a hidden account. So you will not be able to find them, but they can look you up. So again, make sure that if you sign up for these things, then look good, because then they will invite you. And the reason why they are currently having a hidden profile is that if I would make that profile public, within 1 day, they will receive a meeting request from everybody in the system. So look good.
So, so when it comes to, I want that to sink in. And that's not people, that's 750 companies that are signed up in this system. And that's more opportunities than some people see in a year, without doing the things that like you and I do, where all we do is set this stuff up and work on these things. So how, that's interesting, because I didn't even know that you had like little secret people in there. Are there things that, developers can do to, aside from making sure that you've got your profile's filled out and you have a picture and you have your studio logo and all that sort of stuff. Is there anything else that people can do to help, attract attention? Because it's wonderful that there's 750 people or companies in the system, but that means there's also 750, companies in the system that you're going to be competing with on one shape or form when everybody's going through and trying to book their meetings. Are there any other like little secret tips to making your profile stand out more than the next person's?
Yeah, there's one hack that everybody tries once in putting like a strange character before their company name, so they end up high in the list, alphabetically ordered. So we brought in some technology to make sure that every strange character is actually now down at the list instead of up, because we were having like a strange list when you looked at it alphabetically ordered. So what I can recommend is, and I know it's a difficult balance between what you actually want to share with everybody, because everybody can read your profile, versus what you don't want to share, but try balance for yourself what you can already share. The amount of downloads, the amount of players in your alpha phase, the satisfaction score, the size of your community that you've worked on. Try to be different in that sense, because everybody is pitching it as, let's say, I have the new RPG platform X focused game. That's a big blur for everybody. Obviously, people that have RPGs in their portfolio will search for RPGs, so make sure it's still in your profile. But start with something exclusive, something that stands out. It's like sending your resume to a job you really want. Make sure it looks bright and shiny.
So I'm just playing around, in the system right now to get some numbers. If you're a developer and you want to go, to the show for the intent of finding a publisher, I went to the search options, clicked on publishers, and did a search, and there's 130 game publishers that are in this system right now. Yep. And so, let's say I'm a developer looking for, potential work for hire stuff. Let's see, what would that be under? That'd be under company activities development, or companies that are looking for development. There we go. 204 companies. So, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to fill up 3 days worth of meetings if you go and you attack this properly.
Yeah, I can already see in your agenda that you have planned about 20 meetings already.
18 confirmed.
Exactly. And just by getting access and picking the ones you like to pick you. So How much time did you spend actually on getting this to 18 confirmed meetings?
Well, all right. So one, I'm not exactly the normal user because I've used these things before and I know how to go through them. But I mean, even then, I probably only spent an hour or two, maybe. But I didn't use the search filters at all. When I go through, a list like this for any show, I go to the attendees. I do, I rank it by alphabetical order because otherwise, if I get distracted and get wandered off, I need to know where I left off. But then I actually go through and read each one of these things, and this is like, what are they looking for? That's most important to me is what the companies are interested in. But I actually go through and read all of them to find out which ones might be the best bet. And we did this for, I do it for myself and my company, but we also do it for one of our clients as well. And so, when you're wondering how you need to attack 750 companies or 130 different publishers, what we do is I create a spreadsheet that has a tier list, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And even incoming requests need to go into that tier system. But then as I'm going through all of the different companies, if they look interesting in some way, shape, or form, I drop them into that tier list, and then I go back a second time and actually schedule the invites. That way you don't schedule a bunch of invites with people that, you might have something to talk about. There might be an opportunity, and you run out of room for the people that you're like, oh my God, I really, really, really need to get a meeting, with this group. But, that said, I would say an hour or two, per account, basically.
Yeah. So let's say people are not as experienced as you. In my experience, if you spend an hour in 3 weeks, so each week 1 hour, then you can really have like a very polished schedule. And yeah.
And the other good thing that you can do is once you go through that list once, you can basically just search the attendees and go by sign up date, and it'll show you the ones that just recently signed up. So how many, and I noticed this, I was going through everything yesterday, and I noticed how many people are signing up. I mean, my schedule's nearly full. My client schedule is nearly full. I've seen several publishers whose schedule is absolutely slap full. And we've got people signing up today. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 companies signed up 0 days ago, which I'm assuming means today.
Yep.
What percentage of the companies come in here at the last minute like this versus 2-3 weeks ago?
I think 2-3 weeks ago was our biggest sign up amounts. So I think around that time, that is when people are becoming most active. Like in February, end of February, kind of stuff. Like people are like, oh, I need a hotel room still. I need to book my meetings. Oh shit, that hotel room is now $500 a night.
Yes.
Yeah. But then again, also, we work together with country delegations. So, for example, we work with the Brazilian delegation or the Canadian government, and they ask their participants if they want to be part of Meet to Match as well. So they opt in, and they get sometimes when you work with a government, that funding approval is only done, well, we have one example for one governmental organization, which probably the funding will be finalized this week. So we will have like another 40 people coming in there. But luckily, on the other side, what we also see is we saw like one of the top three publishers in console also signed up like 3 days ago, because he was still opening up for additional meetings at GDC. He had some slots left. So some people fill up their schedules pretty quickly, but also investors, publishers, and developers are signing up late. So, and it's
I imagine it creates a bit of a snowball effect too. The more people sign up, the more people they tell about it, the more people sign up.
Yep. Yeah, obviously, yes. So I'm always cheering when somebody else posts something on social media again, like, hey, like today there was another tweet like, yeah, my complete Meet to Match agenda is like completely full. And I was like, I'm so happy when people post that, because that is the proof. The proof is in the pudding, and they have a completely booked pudding. So that helps a lot, and you see traffic coming in from social media coming because of that. That's amazing.
And so the other point about a lot of the government delegations and those companies, and this is where it can get frustrating on the business side of this. If those developers or service providers, whoever is coming with that delegation, if they're not financially involved in this, a lot of times they are the ones that don't fill out those profiles, and that's part of the frustration that I have. It's one thing if I've paid $75 to get access to this and I need to get my $75 worth. It's another if the government's paying for it and I'm like, oh well, maybe I'll go over there and maybe I won't. It's absolutely, for the amount of time it takes you to fill out the profile on this system, it's absolutely just idiotic not to do it, because you have no idea who may see it and go, oh, you know what? I think, there's an opportunity here. I think there's somebody, there's something that we can do with this company, and I'm going to reach out to them, for, the half hour it may take, to fill out this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's actually another element to it as well, which you might not expect. So we work together with those country delegations. How they need to report back is how many meetings they actually facilitated for their participating companies. So those companies need to report back to the trade commissioner of a specific country with how many meetings they had. So if they paid for a company that eventually says like, yeah, I only had one meeting, they will get like a tough look or something like that, So actually, the people in the delegation, for some reason, have proven to be at GDC last year most of the most active ones.
That's awesome.
So one thing is, as you said, like we work with an opt-in system, because if you would just add everybody, then you have a lot of empty profiles, etc. You don't want that. So we let people opt in. But as you said, like very often when you get stuff for free, you take it for granted. And you're not actually using it. But this time, it for some reason, it's the other way around. So I have the feeling that it's something has to do with reporting back on, hey, I got a subsidy for traveling there, and I also need to make the most out of it and prove that, or something like that.
So, I mean, do you help these delegations in terms of prep and what they need to do and getting them support? Because and we've worked with a lot of the government organizations as well, and that's a lot of times where they need the most support is sitting down and because they are bringing studios that in many cases haven't ever done this before. Are there any other benefits that these organizations that bring multiples of companies get from you all?
So what they're getting is normally, coming back to that Excel sheet example I gave you when working at games, trade organizations were doing that themselves. So we're helping them, giving them access to whoever is attending. So that helps them a lot. They don't have the system. We arrange the booking their meeting rooms for them in the right order. That's what all of our technology sorts out. But coming back to things like, do we do any pitch training or whatsoever? What we did for a full disclosure thing, again, we know that you did it. You offer these kind of services,
Mm-hmm.
so we actually helped you promote your services to those delegations. And what we noticed is that most feedback is that they have the actual budget for going there, so they get the fishing pole. But nobody tells them how to fish or where to fish. So the budget is there for the fishing pole, for the booth at the show floor, for our service, but they could do any better. So the only thing that we can do is tell them how it works, how they could improve on how their trade missions look like, and hopefully they'll budget in a different way next year.
Yeah, and that's the way it is, especially when you're dealing with a lot of these government organizations. It's like the first time you go out and you present something to them, it's a little harder to get it all done because they didn't know they needed to factor it in on that, budget that they submitted like 6 months ago for, all of this sort of good stuff. But it is, and we do that because we know that there's a need for this as well. Like you said, it's one thing to have a fishing pole. It's another, thing entirely to know where to go cast that, bait to find what you need. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, we're approaching, ending time. If you've got any questions, absolutely throw them out here. Don't forget, Fedor and I and Andy and most all of our other guests that have been on the show are generally always around on our Discord server. And I'll toss that up, right there for everyone. Andy, you got any questions? Or where are you and how are you comfortable where you were going to, because you're going to PAX.
I'm going to PAX, yep.
So how are you preparing for that then?
I'm just going to go. I am just going to go and walk the entire floor.
Dan, we got to get you set
up. Have you been listening to this podcast?
Oh no, I have. But I find for me personally, it's super effective if I walk the floor. I'm not a big meeting type of person. I would rather just experience everything and walk the floor.
All right. And to be fair, that is actually still, and we have clients and companies that are near to being clients that are going to GDC. And especially you operate in an area of this industry that's evolving faster than anything else. The streaming and the influencer world has gone from, something of a niche to literally taking over marketing for games. And now we have, not only agencies that revolve around influencers and streamers, but we've got a, growing pool of sponsors that are coming out and want to get, your attention as an influencer. So, whenever you are new to an industry or a segment of an industry, or you're in a segment that's evolving ridiculously fast, or you've just never been to one of these shows, I mean, what you just described is exactly one of the best ways to do, to go about doing all this stuff. And that's what I tell my clients too. We'll have them, they may have a new ad technology or some new SDK to put in. And one of the first things I'll tell them is set aside, 2 or 3 hours during the show to just walk around, get a feel of the vibe for one, because it's not, we're not like the hotel hospitality industry or, the airline industry. Our shows are quite a bit different than most other business conferences. So you need to get a vibe for what's going on. At the same time, you need to get out there and see who your competitors are. What other features do they have and that sort of stuff. And literally walking the floor is the best way to do that too. So
true that.
All right. Well, I don't see any questions coming in right now, which is fine. There's our Discord. Y'all know where to find us there.
We want to post a link to sign up for the event.
We've got we've got that link in there, and there's a discount applied to it as well for the GDC event. And then I will post a link to our event. Oh, I don't have to. I know that. I changed the URL on it. Our event, super, super easy. Indiegame.business. There you go. That'll take you to our online event that we're doing.
Wow, that's done greatly. I don't do that with my Eventbrite events. Short linking them to that. I'm learning from this conversation. Thanks a lot. This is so good.
I was shocked to find out that URL was open when I got it, and so I grabbed it up real quick. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Discord, LinkedIn. Our YouTube channel is under the screen and all the wonderful link areas there. The beauty of our YouTube channel is not only does it have archives of this show, but we also go through and hand curate lists of lectures from other conferences that are public. So if you just don't really know where to start in terms of marketing your game, or you're going to look for a publisher and you want to know everything there is to know about it, there are complete playlists on our YouTube page of all of that sort of
everything about everything.
Yep. Everything about the business of games.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. So Fedor, thank you so much for being on the show. I greatly appreciate it. And then, I guess we're going to roll on out, Indy.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you too, guys.
Bye. Have a good one,
See you,
everyone.
everybody.